It is the beginning of the end for woke corporate interests. Customers have had their fill of spoon-fed propaganda. Corporations have kowtowed to the Karen contingent over the past decade to the detriment of quality content. Identity politics have superseded character development. The most popular characters in movies, television shows, and comics have typically been the ones that demonstrate real human traits that people can relate to. Spider-Man, Luke Skywalker, and Batman are some of the most popular characters in the world because they show human traits, not because they are male. Hollywood has forgotten this in its quest for cosmic social justice. Netflix's stock dropped precipitously in recent months due to the sustained backlash against content pushing woke ideological agendas. For the first time in 10 years, Netflix lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers. The stock declined from $600 on January 1 to $200 by June 8 as a result. Some will write this off as part of the coming recession, but this year Netflix is the worst-performing stock in the S&P 500. This is likely the result of such controversial shows as Cuties. In response, Netflix has backtracked on its support for woke content and woke employees. The company released a memo last month discussing their change of tune. Not everyone will like, or agree with, everything on our service. While every title is different, we approach them based on the same set of principles. We support the artistic expression of the creators we choose to work with, we program for a diversity of audiences and tastes, and we let viewers decide what's appropriate for them, versus having Netflix censor specific artists or voices. The company is saying in a roundabout way that it no longer wants to censor content that leftist employees do not like, such as stand-up comedy from Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais. The company goes on. As employees, we support the principle that Netflix offers a diversity of stories, even if we find some titles counter to our own personal values. Depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you, states the memo. Netflix just casually told its woke employees to get out. Hopefully, more companies will follow suit. Had corporate leaders followed the will of stockholders, as opposed to the will of stakeholders, this all could have been avoided. The biggest critics of modern-day entertainment are not the direct consumers of these products. Similar factors plague the comic book industry, and it continually tries to adjust to the whims of the biggest complainers while forgetting about what the customer really wants. The social justice warriors complain that the comic book industry is not diverse enough when its origins lie amongst a diverse set of people who suffered greatly in the 20th century. Most of the popular superhero characters today were invented by second- and third-generation Jewish immigrants in the 1940s and 60s. Many Americans who love Marvel and DC are not aware that comic books have always had diversity. As someone who has followed the comic industry for years, and used to have 2 million nerdy followers on Facebook, I can tell you that regular fans do not want woke content. Yet Marvel continues to hire the absolute wokest among us to dish out terrible content that no one reads. Again, the biggest critics of these industries are not paying customers. Your company will not be more profitable if it follows the whims of the deranged. The woke mind virus, as Elon Musk calls it, has taken over and readership has declined steadily in recent decades as manga, Japanese comics, have taken over the industry. The trouble here is in the business world's misunderstanding of shareholder and stakeholder theories. Lost on many are the real-life consequences of each. The confusion should not be surprising given that Milton Friedman's shareholder theory is no longer taught on woke college campuses. Pick up any Business 101 textbook from a major manufacturer such as Tsingage, McGraw-Hill, or Pearson and you will not find it. Stakeholder theory is presented as the only option. Often in the same book, you will find the chapters promoting environmental social governance, ESG, and other woke concepts concerning the social responsibility of corporations. Milton Friedman wrote a short essay for the New York Times describing stockholder theory that very few people read. The title of the article, "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits," is a good description of how companies operate. Edward Friedman, yes, we know the names are confusing, is the creator of stakeholder theory. He often tells people that Milton Friedman would have supported his theory. The reality is Edward had years to ask Milton if he supported it. He did not even try. Edward waited for Milton to pass away before telling the world that Milton totally would have supported stakeholder theory, a move he likely made to sell more books. I believe the confusion here is like the confusion between consequentialist and utilitarian ethics. These concepts do overlap greatly but after significantly different results in real life. Both ethical standards are concerned with the ends, or the results of actions. However, consequentialist ethics, as championed by Milton Friedman, is concerned with the immediate personal, legal, and social consequences of an action. Most of these decisions can be determined intuitively in day-to-day business and do not need further research. Whereas, utilitarian ethics, as espoused by socialists such as Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, says you must mentally tabulate all possible negative externalities. Although utilitarian ethics sounds nice in theory, it seems impossible to put into practice. As Milton Friedman wrote, the discussions of the social responsibilities of business are notable for their analytical looseness and lack of rigor. What does it mean to say that business has responsibilities? Only people can have responsibilities. A corporation is an artificial person and in this sense may have artificial responsibilities, but business as a whole cannot be said to have responsibilities, even in this vague sense. The first step toward clarity in examining the doctrine of the social responsibility of business is to ask precisely what it implies for whom. To be clear, I do not believe stakeholder theory is socialism. I do, however, believe that stakeholder theory and socialism are based on the same faulty moral presuppositions. I would throw in inclusiveness, as expressed on college campuses, as another moral standard based on faulty rationale and fairy tales. As colleges have pushed for greater inclusiveness, they have left more and more people out. U.S. universities have been losing students, mainly males, for over a decade now. Stakeholder theory has caused many companies and institutions to lose their way. While Friedman believes executives should follow the basic rules of society, he does not believe, like Edward Freeman, that executives are responsible for all problems in our universe. Shareholder theory has constraints. This is key. It says here are the responsibilities that you, as a non-omnipotent being, can handle. Whereas stakeholder says you are responsible for all possible negative externalities, including those very loosely associated with the business. If your company is in retail, it is highly that your business sells hundreds if not thousands of products. It would be impossible to predict the actions of every person involved in the procurement, manufacturing, and distribution of that product. Pick a room in your house, any room really. Likely, you do not know how most of those products are made, let alone who the people are that made them, or what those employees do after work. However, stakeholder theory expects executives and business owners to know that. Milton Friedman's other famous essay, A Pencil, demonstrates how complicated the manufacturing of something as simple as a pencil can be.
The basic principles underlying the free market, as Adam Smith taught them to his students in this university, are really very simple.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office. It was the magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum. That is why the operation of the free market is so essential, not only to promote productive efficiency, but even more, to foster harmony and peace among the peoples of the world.
Despite all this, many believe governments, corporations, and institutions are these omnipotent beings that can solve all problems. They are big-time theorists and small-time critics. This means they have grand theories on how the world should work but know little about how it does. Then when one negative externality strikes, they believe the entire system should be upended. Socialism brands itself as the all-inclusive solution to this problem, but it could not be further from the truth. As Thomas Sowell said, socialism in general has a record of failure so blatant that only an intellectual could ignore or evade it. Yet it is more popular today than ever before. Too many pseudo-intellectuals in the education system promote this idea to millennials and Gen Z. Those young people enter the corporate world and see a corporation's main purpose as pushing a political agenda. This is destined to fail. As the great Michael Jordan once said, Republicans buy sneakers, too. Corporations and universities pushing equity, inclusion, and diversity are beginning to feel the heat as this idea comes home to roost. The country needs a better understanding of what humans are capable of. It is better to succeed in a single domain than to fail in all. Netflix forgot this. Our institutions have forgotten this. Americans are unhappy with the current state of the country and those who serve them. The country needs a return to shareholder theory.